Good morning. I'm Linda Modlinski, Senior Vice President with the Minnesota Association of Realtors. In the recent weeks and months, we've had many calls and questions about the acceptance of purchase agreements on short sale properties that are subject to the approval of the mortgage holder. Another issue connected with such purchase agreements is the deposit of earnest money. MNAR staff has shared the opinion of our legal counsel with members when such calls and questions are received, but our responses have often been challenged by members who are telling us that our answers differ widely from what is being practiced in today's marketplace. This troubled us as we don't want to see our members engaged in real estate activities that could lead them to possible complaints and actions, both in the ethics arena and with the Minnesota Department of Commerce. So we asked officials from the DOC to meet with us and share their views and opinions on this matter. We met with them last week and they concurred with the assessment of our general legal counsel. I want to share those issues with you today to help you in your real estate activities. First of all, let's examine a short sale. In some transactions, the seller owes more to the mortgage holder than the sale of the property will fund, and the seller does not have sufficient equity to sell the property without coming to the closing with additional cash to make up the difference. When the seller doesn't have enough equity and money to close the transaction, the seller then asks the mortgage holder to release the mortgage, even though the proceeds from the sale won't satisfy the debt that is owed to the bank or the mortgage holder. In such a situation, if a purchase agreement is presented to the seller and after negotiations the seller accepts the offer, it must include language that the offer is subject to lender approval. At this point in the transaction, when the buyers and the sellers have reached agreement, signed the offer, and copies are delivered to all parties, there is an acceptance of the purchase agreement. Subject to bank approval is considered a contingency, and it is very similar to an offer that is subject to an inspection contingency. Minnesota statutes require earnest money to be deposited in the trust account of the listing broker within 3 business days of the acceptance of the purchase agreement, unless the buyer and the seller agree to other provisions relating to the earnest money. In the situation that I just described, unless the buyer and the seller have agreed otherwise, the earnest money must be deposited in the trust account within 3 business days. No exceptions. When such a contingent offer is accepted, the listing company is required to disclose the acceptance to other agents and brokers who make an inquiry to show the property. It is an accepted contingent purchase agreement, and the existence of such is a material fact relating to the transaction, and it must be disclosed to cooperative agents and brokers who make an inquiry on the property or ask for an appointment to show the property to a prospective buyer. If a second offer is received while the first offer is being considered by the lender, the second offer is presented to the seller, who may accept it, but the second offer would need to be contingent upon cancellation of the first purchase agreement. We are aware that the bank or lender approval can be a lengthy process, and sometimes buyers may become interested in a new property while they are awaiting the approval of the mortgage holder. If a buyer who has entered into a purchase agreement that is subject to lender approval wants to write a second or even a third purchase offer on another property, the agent working with that buyer must be sure that such an offer is subject to the cancellation of the first outstanding purchase agreement. Without such language, it could subject the buyer to purchasing 2 or more different properties. Agents not including such language may be subject to misrepresentation or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the transaction and could find themselves the respondent of either an ethics or Department of Commerce investigation. Realtors are becoming involved in more unique and complicated transactions in today's marketplace. We urge realtors to avoid situations like I have just described. Agents should not hesitate to encourage both buyers and sellers to seek legal advice or guidance when in doubt in any transaction involving short sales. Agents should also seek guidance from their brokers or managers to help them avoid situations that could expose the agent or the company to legal liability. The Minnesota Realtors Legal Hotline is also an excellent resource and will provide answers to general real estate issues and concerns. Thanks for listening, and I hope you find this helpful in your day-to-day real estate activities.